Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Hello and welcome to the latest look back over some of the items featured on Talking Heads during the past week. The future of the Manx Pension Supplement, LegCo reform, and the possibility of life on other planets were all up for discussion. We'll hear about those later, but we'll start with something which was really a hangover from the previous Sunday's Man in Line. Here's Stu Peters with more.
Which language should take precedence on Manx road signs? It's a discussion which was ignited on Sunday's Man in Line, and for this morning's mandate, John Moss took up the story.
In the last few days, the subject of Manx road names and their English translations, usually featured one below the other on signs in the island, has been raised with criticism in some quarters of the use of the English version. Case in point, the Sloping Road, or in the Manx, Bear Clanach. Now, I've probably got that wrong. We'll find out in a moment. I tend to use both names, but am I wrong in that? Should I, as suggested by Hazel Hannon, the former MHK, use only the Manx? This is the Isle of Man, after all. Legislation was passed on this subject in 1985. Joining me is the Manx Language Officer for Culture Van, Adrian Kane. This is a contentious subject, so you only realise how contentious it is when you actually start talking about it.
You've been in trouble, have you? Yeah.
I have been in trouble. I've been castigated, generally across the island. Should there be one rule saying, we're the Isle of Man, why don't we have all the names in Manx?
The rule which was, suggested by the Tinwell Committee a long time ago now is that we should have bilingual signage. And the reality is whether, you got the English, is the Manx, and people continue to use the English. Obviously, when I speak Manx, we'll always use the Manx. But certainly where the place name is well attested, where it's well known and it's always been in use. And some people might not, to be honest, you'd be surprised, some people have just Claddock, some people might not realise that's Manx, to be honest. That's the name, Claddock, that it should be just the name in Manx. There's no need to have the translation, because the fear is that the translation will result in the move towards the English uses. That hasn't happened in places like the Claddock, as I said before, because of its complexity, but it has definitely regards to Clanna Road anyway.
Which language would you like to see take precedence? Is there space for both, or should signs be restricted to using the most commonly used names, whether they're Manx Gaelic or not? Listening to you talk about this is from Mary. Listening to you talk about Manx names and that you always hear English versions, even by the Manx, this is so untrue. In my world, I know of no one who uses the English version of any road. You spend too much time in Douglas. Get out a bit more. Go to agricultural shows, meet indigenous population, the minority now, and that is what is so wrong. I've been trying. I've got an aversion to agricultural shows because I was dragged around them by my parents when I was a child. And the countryside, I've been there. It smells. I quite like it in the towns, to be honest. We're slowly losing our identity and will soon become part of a museum piece, says Mary. Well said, Mrs. Hannon on Sunday. And John Dogg, it makes me so mad. No roads should have English names on them. Why do they need them? It's what it is for centuries and surely adds cost to local authorities. We have a language, use it. Why aren't we more like the Welsh and Irish who wouldn't stand for it? We're not English or part of the UK, Grrr, says Mary. And then ends up with 3 kisses. So she berates me and then sort of kisses it better. Thank you, Mary. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you go to Wales or Ireland, the chances are that people will be talking in the local language, won't they? Whereas in the Isle of Man, I can't think that I've ever been anywhere in my 18 years here where everybody's been talking Manx Gaelic, apart from the Manx language lessons that I did for a year with Adrian. But, I agree with everything that you're saying, but, let's be realistic about it. Robin Peel called, the Manx names on road signs always attract interest from visitors. It's something that a number of them have mentioned to me. Okay, and I thought that John Moss made a very good point that there are, where you've got these things that have got sort of the English translation underneath of the Manx, you often wouldn't have known what the Manx words meant. So it can be quite interesting and informative, I think. Hey Stu, if all the signs are changed to Manx, won't it confuse 99% of the Manxes as they can't even speak the national language? Love the show, yes sir. From Jonesy. Stu, I think you guys at Manx Radio are doing just fine, and well done Johnny Moss for taking a damn good verbal thrashing from former Peel MHK Hazel Hannon on the Man in Line on Sunday. He didn't deserve it. Are you sure? Yeah, except there are still 1 or 2 of yous saying Andreas as Undress and Foxdale as Faxtell, which might be factually correct, but hey, it grinds my gears, says Al. That's the only trouble with it. It was John Dog Collister who, in my very early days on Manx Radio, corrected me once and said, it's not Andreas, it's Andrus. So I started pronouncing it Andrus, and then people from Andrus got in touch and said, no, that's not how you do it. So you can never please all the people all the time, I don't think. Let's go to the lines and see what Wilf makes of this. Hello, Wilf.
John Dog is spot on.
Okay.
He pronounces it as it should be.
Well, Andrus.
As I do. Yeah, as I do.
Right.
Now then, I quite like the English version as well, explaining and what the Manx name means.
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's a good idea. But I also would like, it's making the sign a little bit bigger, alongside the top wording, which would be Manx, would be how you would say it.
Our pronunciation guide.
That's it.
Spell it
how
phonetically.
You would say it. And then underneath, of course, is the English version of what it means.
Everybody would be getting lost. The signs would be so complex.
No, not at all. And the Clannad, it's not the Clannad at Sulby, it's the Claddag.
You see.
You emphasize the G at the end of it.
It's a can of worms, this.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Does the financial crisis in Greece have potential implications for the Isle of Man? It was one of the topics up for discussion on Monday.
Should the Isle of Man be worried by the current situation in Greece? Banks in Greece are to remain shut all week as the country edges closer to economic collapse. It's all because there's been no deal over its massive debts and the European Central Bank won't extend more financial support. There's even a €60 limit, which is about £42, on ATM withdrawals. Greece has announced its banks and stock exchange will be shut all week after the country was refused the extra funding it needs. Athens and its creditors have failed to agree a new deal over its massive debts, meaning it's now closer to leaving the euro. But is the situation in Greece a potential worry for the Isle of Man? Treasury Minister Eddie Tear.
I'm concerned overall with the effect on confidence both within the European Union and also in the United Kingdom. Now, I don't think it's going to have a dramatic effect directly on the Isle of Man, but indirectly, I do see that if it does impact upon consumer confidence and business confidence in the UK and Europe, it will have an impact on us.
Is the situation in Greece a worry? Could it be the start of more serious problems for the Eurozone, or is it just a temporary blip? Perhaps the Greek government should give strong consideration to introducing toilet tax to claw back taxes. Begs the question, why did they not consider observing caring societies with freedom to flourish to see how to sensibly rectify the situation? Maybe the extra 20% growth in population could be realised by inviting Greek refugees to the land of milk and honey, where the state will throw free benefits at them. Well, yes, not for 5 years, though. I saw a newspaper report some time ago about Greece and the fact that they'd gone into the euro and it was the land of milk and honey, and they were spending billions on schemes that the country just couldn't afford, but it was all being funded by Brussels. And people, residents were getting free travel and stuff on the new monorails and underground railways and things like that. It was just completely balmy. It was just spending money they didn't have. Stu, I'd be sick as a pig if I knew that my taxes were going to prop up poor countries who just joined the union for cash, and a lot did. Yes, I think they did. Thoughts maybe the Isle of Man should have. Shucks, the boat sailed. Oh no, it hasn't. The steam packet's in charge. Oh, you see, at least 2 digs in one text there. Let's try and be positive about this. If you've got a realistic view about the situation in Greece, if you'd like to turn the whole thing into having a pop at the Isle of Man government, then feel free. We can do that too. Somebody sent a text. Great exchange rate last week over there. We got €146 to the pound. Well, there you go. In every cloud. What else? I'm going to Rhodes in 3 months, not worried about the banks. Are the breweries safe? I would think so, yeah. It's just whether or not you can get any cash out of the hole-in-the-wall machines to pay for the drinks. Stu was never keen on Greece because I don't like John Travolta, says Bill. Thank you, Bill, for lightening the mood. Greece takes the pound and you get a great deal on goods, food and beer, etc. if paying in pounds. Oh, right, OK, I didn't know you could do that. So you can go to Greece and pay in pound notes and you get a good exchange rate. Good stuff. With regard to Greece, don't panic, as their finance minister has confirmed that they're going to be mining extra supplies of couscous ingots, also to help their economy even further. All Greek restaurants will serve food on rubber plates. This will save a fortune on plates being smashed at the end of meals. P.S. Could you also please refrain from using the term Eurozone, as this then gives them the right to call this Poundland? Well thought through, Mal. Yes, I'll have that.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
The future of pension and benefit payments was also in the news this week. with one payment in particular taking the spotlight.
Should the Manx Pension Supplement be scrapped? Treasurer Minister Eddie Teare says the end of the Manx Pension Supplement could be in sight. The extra pension cash for those who've paid 10 years of contributions on the island could be phased out over the coming years. It follows a consultation over possible reforms to the Manx social security and state pension schemes. The subject was discussed in the House of Keys yesterday morning.
In answer to the second part of the Honourable Member's question, the recent consultation on social security reform asked, amongst other things, whether the Manx Pension Supplement should be phased out for new pensioners over a 20-year period. This proposal was supported by the majority of respondents to the consultation. Next month, I shall be presenting to another place a strategy document which sets out Treasury's recommendations for reforming the Manx social security and the national insurance systems. There will be an opportunity for honourable members to debate the future of the Manx Pension Supplement scheme at that time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Talking about the Manx Pension Supplement, which has been a contentious issue for as long as I can remember, people for it or against it. It looks as though the Treasury Minister Eddie Teare is looking to phase it out over a period of time. What do we think about that? And obviously he's going to replace it with something else. Will the new system be fairer? We shall have to wait and see. But some comments on this already. Stu, Teare's declared intention to scrap the Manx Pension Supplement just epitomises this government's lack of a proper policy mandate from the electorate and their contempt for real democracy. Beltier and Shimmin should have the courage to stand up and publicly debate this issue with the voters who pay for the fur-lined Tynwald pension scheme. That from William. I hope that when Mr Teare is sitting back collecting his largely unpaid for MHK's pension that he hangs his head in shame for robbing poor Manx pensioners of the tiny supplement so that he can maintain bumper pensions for some well-heeled civil servants. Shame on him, says somebody else. Let's go to the lines. Hello, Dave.
I agree with all those sentiments that people have just passed through to you, but it was brought in because in the 60s, 70s, cost of living being so high, and people, pensioners and others, I mean, you had winter work schemes where people had to go away, work on the sugar beet and what have you, and bring money back. Now, that's why the supplement was brought in. The cost of living here is still the same. It's still very high. I mean, it's all right for those people, as I've said before, in government who are on massive pensions.
Sure, yeah.
They are not going to feel it. But the average man, woman in the street, like yourself, you are going to feel it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if there's going to be that gap, then, you know, people are just not going to be able to live. I mean, they'll obviously find a way around it. But clearly, the government at the moment, in its present state, hasn't got the money to do that.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. Let's have a look at some more comments by text. Do I understand this right? Is it a phase out of new pensioners' entitlement? If so, then those who do get this now will continue, like me, says Stuart. Yeah, I think the Minister was talking about grandfather rights, effectively. So if you're getting the pension supplement at the moment, I think you will continue to get it. Certainly for 20 years, I think it will be phased out gradually, is my understanding. As ever, with anything important, don't take my word for anything and double-check it if it's important to you. Yet again, the younger generation will lose out to the generation who've made the mess that we're in. It seems anyone under 40 will have to work until they drop, as the elder generation will have eaten all the cake. Hey, listen, I'm no spring chicken, Alan, and the cake is never there when I get to the table, so I'm one of those older people probably, and I expect that my pension rights will be limited compared to people who've gone before me. Stu, if you only get out what you pay in, does this mean that MHKs will get nothing, says Robbie? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be great if an edict, you see, if I was a benevolent dictator for life, I would issue an edict that says you can only take out what you've put in. So if anybody's not put in over a period of years, then they wouldn't get anything out at all. I quite like the idea of that. Talking about the Manx Pension Supplement, we've got our friend Sylvia on. Hi, Sylvia.
I think the general public on the whole, they don't understand that if you're born before 1945, you've got to pay 44 years in to qualify for a pension.
Yes.
If you're born after 1945, that's one day, you only have to pay in 30 years to qualify for a pension.
Oh, really?
Yes, and that's where it's wrong.
Yeah, it is.
And that was introduced by Tony Blair and his Merry Men.
Right.
I made inquiries earlier this year I understood that the amount of people receiving the Manx Pension Supplement was 6,006.
Yeah.
Not a lot in the big scheme of things.
Sure, yeah.
I also was told at the same time that pension fund the Manx Pension National Insurance Pension Fund stood at 167 million.
Right.
So it seems to me an attack on pensioners, to be honest. And I was horrified this year when I got my income tax bill to find that the age allowance for pensioners has been cut from 2,000 to 1,000.
Right.
So it's bringing people in who didn't pay
Previously
tax.
didn't pay, yeah.
And it's all these little bitty things. I think it's something should be published with the sheer fact.
Mr. Tier really has it in for the pensioners. He wants to stop the supplement, get us out of the triple lock system, and those lucky enough to have a private pension, so sorry, he won't let you cash that in. You might be too well off. Thanks for nothing, Mr. Tier. And that's from Derek. He says the supplement was given because we don't have a pension credit like the UK. I've just contacted the DHSS and asked what is the qualification for a Manx worker to be eligible for a full state pension. The answer was 46 years. So this should be the criteria for the Manx supplement. Patrick called. I inquired about this when I first heard about it, and I understand that people who are 70 and on a pension will still get the supplement. It relates only to younger people. Yes, I think that's what the Minister said, that this is something that was going to be phased in, that people would have grandfather rights effectively. So if you're entitled to it now, that will continue. Stu, tell Frank to get his facts right. Fact, says Bill. Well, Frank doesn't seem to understand that because he believes something, that doesn't make it a fact. And if he expresses it, it doesn't make it a fact. It might well be an opinion, and it might be a valid opinion, but it's not a fact. Stu, I don't understand how pensioners survive if they've only got the state pension. If you don't get the supplement or anything else, it's £538 a month. Shocking, says Jude. Yeah.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
As the Curragh Wildlife Park prepared to mark 50 years of operation, Stu was joined in the studio by the General Manager of the park, Kathleen Graham, and the discussion turned to the idea of conservation.
One question that I meant to ask you last time you were here is that there's been a sort of a move away from zoos and things with enclosures. People sometimes say that captivity is cruel, but I'm guessing that a lot of the animals that you have there have actually been bred in captivity anyway. So
we're members of BIAZA, which is the British and Irish Association of Zoos and Aquaria, and EAZA, which is the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria. And zoos are very well organised now in their captive breeding programmes. The only time something from the wild would be taken is if it's literally just about to go extinct. So the animals are all captive bred. Zoos and wildlife parks, since I've been working in the industry, have come on leaps and bounds. And the amount of money now that zoos and wildlife parks raise for conservation in situ, in the field, is really quite significant. And it's not just that, it's the education that we can do. So I'm very proud, really, to be working in that field. And there's been some brilliant work done. This year we're raising money to purchase 50 acres of rainforest in the Choco rainforest in Colombia, and that's through the World Land Trust. So far, our visitors have helped us raise enough money to purchase 20 acres, so that's been purchased. And our target for the end of this year is to have purchased 50 acres, so right. 50 acres for 50 years. So that's a really good way of saving all the species, because you're purchasing that habitat, it can then not be destroyed.
In some ways you're fighting a losing battle in some areas, aren't you? I mean, I'm not particularly an animal lover, I'm not a zoo person, but you sometimes see programmes on the TV about tigers being made extinct effectively because people are trying to sell the paws or bits for medicines and things like that. I mean, it's
rhinos
crazy.
Is one that's
right,
just I mean, that's rhinos the populations were growing, and the black markets just went horrendous. And the amount of rhinos that are now being slaughtered just in the last few years, it's really quite horrific. So animal conservation really has so many facets to it, really. It can be political, but I think every person can make a difference.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
You're listening to the latest Talking Heads podcast, featuring highlights from the programme over the past week. Could the island benefit from the restoration of the Heathrow route? That was one question asked on Thursday.
Would flights between the Isle of Man and Heathrow help to boost business and tourism travel to the island? Economic Development Minister Lawrence Skelly has given a cautious welcome to the news that EasyJet wants to fly between Heathrow and the Isle of Man. Comes after a commission set up by the UK government recommended a third runway should be built at Heathrow to help boost the UK airport's capacity. The commission says the proposal will generate up to £147 billion in economic output over 60 years. It's only a recommendation before the government makes a final decision, but that recommendation for a third runway at Heathrow depends on the airport addressing environmental concerns. That announcement led EasyJet to repeat its pledge to set up a base there and fly to Ronaldsway. Economic Development Minister Lawrence Skelly told Jason Roberts Heathrow is a destination that's always been in demand.
The business community have, of course, of recent years been very much focused on London City, which is a very, very good route and convenient service right into the city itself. BA currently serve that and has served the island very well in terms of its frequency. We hope that will be continued. But this new development is very interesting, and there's something that we will take notice of, and we'll be reviewing to see how the Isle of Man can benefit from that, and that whether that be business. And I would also suggest that Heathrow also is a major airport in terms of international travel, so onward travel is a big factor as well at that airport.
Would an air link to Heathrow be a real boost to the Isle of Man, or is the island already well served by the existing London routes? Could it put the current services in jeopardy? Tell us your thoughts about the proposals. We're joined on the line now by Terry Lydiard, who's aviation spokesperson for Travel Watch Isle of Man.
I think the one point which perhaps didn't come across really well is the most important point of all, that for the first time the recommendation is that routes to regional centres, provincial centres, are being, the proposal is that they should be ring-fenced.
Yes.
So they would have a right to in fact, what effectively would mean, it would mean that slots for this particular type of operation would actually belong to the Isle of Man rather to whichever airline was operating the route at the moment, effectively.
Oh, that would be better,
and
certainly.
That's very, very significant, really. Yeah.
Yes. I suppose that the problem is that, airports are commercial operations, aren't they? So it's in their interest to try and make as much money as possible, and I suppose you make more from a transatlantic flight than you would do for a commuter flight to the Isle of Man.
Which is precisely why we lost our Gatwick services.
Yes.
And most other parts of Britain did as well, because 80-seater aircraft were just being squeezed out as Gatwick went for longer haul and much more profitable services, understandably as a commercial organisation.
Sure.
But, and you're quite right, an airport has got to be as profitable as it can be, but there's a number of conditions set by the Airports Commission. And the other thing is possibly a total ban on night flying at Heathrow.
Yeah.
Now that would cost the airport dear. So there are these sort of conditions. So the fact that certain slots would be protected for regional services are something they'd have to take into account.
Good stuff. Thank you for calling today, Terry.
You're very welcome.
Cheers. Bye-bye. A couple of comments in, and one of them is making the point made yesterday, actually. Stu, it could be years before a new runway is built. I mean, many years of inquiries and protests. It may not even happen, says Bill. You're absolutely right, Bill. I think you made the same point yesterday. This is probably going to last so long that our radar might be working and signed off by the CAA by the time Heathrow built their third runway. Stu, the problem with airlines serving the island in the past is that there have been too many flights against the number of people using them. If EasyJet start a Heathrow route, how long before the Gatwick route gets discontinued, says Mal. Again, this is a problem we come across all the time, isn't it? We are a small island with 85,000 people, and we expect things like routes to all the airports, but if there isn't the traffic using them, then we're going to lose them. It's the use them or lose them thing, isn't it? Gatwick is the best airport for the majority of Manx people to fly in for their holidays abroad, says Brian. Yeah, that's my understanding, Brian, that it's better for a lot of holiday routes, but probably not quite so good for business routes.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Also on Thursday, Pam Crow of the Friends of St John Ambulance joined Stu to talk about a special event being held at the weekend, the Hidden Gardens and Secret Treasures of Ballasalla. And it was all to raise money for a worthy cause.
Well, I've been in St John Ambulance, I think, since I was 12.
Yes.
And really, it is a lovely family to join. You join as a cadet, and it's amazing the number of cadets that have gone on to further. Met one only yesterday who's now training in Manchester to be a physiotherapist, and her sister, again who was a cadet, is training to be a nurse. And that's amazing stepping stone for our young people.
And it's one of those sort of charity organisations that people tend to take for granted, don't they? Because, you go to events and things, and very often St John Ambulance are there providing emergency services.
Oh, yes, and a great deal of motorsport especially couldn't take place without St John Ambulance, and indeed for the TT, of course, St John Ambulance crews help us out from across with ambulances and the like. But we've got a new ambulance coming, and so we're busy raising funds. That Friends of St John just raise funds, and that'll be used for either training or for fitting out ambulance, supplying medical gases, all the things nowadays. In my day, it was sufficient to stick a bandage on and put someone's arm in a sling. Nowadays, you need to know how to do airways and medical gases. It's a different ball game altogether.
Is it one of those things where you can do as much or as little as you want? I mean, whenever we talk to the marshals, when they're trying to recruit new people, they say, don't worry, you're not going to be thrown into the scene of an accident to sort it out.
Exactly. And even if you're fundraising, because, anyone that helps make tea is contributing to St John Ambulance. So, I mean, I'm always desperately looking for people to help make tea, serve tea, whatever it might be for an event. But it's all part of the family. It's like all of these things.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
It's something that's been debated many times over the years, but the latest bid to reform the Legislative Council was thrown out by the House of Keys this week.
Should drastic changes be made to the election process for MLCs? There was a heated contribution from the Chief Minister to the debate over the Legislative Council reform bill this week. On Tuesday, the House of Keys was asked to consider proposals by Onken MHK Peter Carron to have the Legislative Council elected by popular vote, with all candidates standing in a single constituency. The bill also included introducing STV for the poll, single transferable vote. Amendments were put forward to divide the island into 8 constituencies for the Legislative Council election, and there was a bid to send the bill to a committee for consideration. But in the end, the proposed legislation fell at the vote for the first clause, when the short title was voted down. But in the lead up to the vote, Mr Bell got to his feet to express his frustration.
This means we're scrapping the House of Keys. It's not just amending the LegCo elections, it's scrapping the House of Keys as well as LegCo. The whole lot will be swept away. This is a fundamental constitutional change which will affect the way we govern the Isle of Man for many, many generations to come. And we treat it as a political football for election purposes. This is not the way government should be running. We need to just calm down about this, and instead of bidding up the ante for the election, let's realise that the serious responsibility that lies on all our shoulders to make sure we have a government system that works effectively for the people of the Isle of Man. And that's been forgotten this morning.
Is an overhaul of the election process needed to speed things up, or is reform something that would be a complete waste of time? Let's go to the lines. We've got Chris on. Hi, Chris.
My thoughts on this is that the system of voting for the Legislative Council is a mere technicality, which I'm sure is not beyond the wit of Tyndall to sort out.
Yeah.
The main problem, I feel, is that the actual role of the Legislative Council needs to be defined.
Well, I think everybody kind of knows what LegCo is there for, but are you saying that it needs to be cast in tablets of stone at some point?
Well, we all keep saying that we know what it's there for, and it's all marvellous, all this advising and scrutinising and all the rest of it, and taking a second look. But when you consider if that's supposed to be their role, how come, for example, when Mr Braidwood lost his seat, but Mr Tier was so keen to bring him back into Treasury, even though he was unelected, surely that, and I'm sure he had been doing a marvellous job, Mr Braidwood, but it shows that as a member of the Legislative Council, that wasn't his job. His job wasn't to be a member of the department. His job was to take a second look at legislation, revise, scrutinise, and if he was there on Treasury doing that...
Well, I mean, talking about Phil Braidwood, then I take what you're saying, but I mean, the fact is that he was probably doing his job as a member of LegCo, doing the scrutinising and revising and all the rest of it, and then doing his departmental work on top of that. So if you've got somebody who's in LegCo who does have special skills or useful skills that you can use in a department, in some ways it's good that the government recognised that and used him for those. He's already been paid, so why not get some value for money out of the member?
Okay, I'm sure, I hope you don't mind us using it as an example. I don't mean to pick on him as such, but why did he elect to become, or why did House of Keys allow a member to become legislative council. He's dropped all those skills. He's got a new set of skills, and that isn't to get his hands dirty there in the department with the rest of the lads. He's stepping back, or he's stepped up onto legislative council. He's stepped apart from them, but it seems to me that they just use them, as I've said before, as unfettered members of Tynwald with no representation, and that, I think, is wrong.
All right.
It's not democratic, is it?
All right, Chris, yes, some good points. So you're worried that people are running with the hare and the hounds. Yes, I can see that as a point of view. Thank you very much for your call. Let's have a look at some of our texts and emails. Hey, boy, sounds like old Ding Dong is trying to preserve his own election to the upper chamber to grab his second pension. Opinion, says Frank. Thank you, Frank. Thank you. You realise that it's an opinion rather than a fact. Quite frankly, I am sick and tired of listening to Alan Bell getting on his high horse and berating the MHKs as though they're a classroom full of naughty school children. They, like us, are entitled to an opinion, and just because he doesn't like what he hears, he won't gag them, much as he appears to try. I, for one, am fed up of listening to his voice and the media asking his opinion on everything. Well, he's the Chief Minister. I have no interest on what Mr. Alan Bell's opinions are, and if Banks Radio would like to introduce an Alan Bell hour, I'll know when to switch the radio off, says Ali. He's the Chief Minister. It's inevitable that he's going to have a voice, and to be honest, I don't think we hear him that often. We certainly don't hear him quite cross. Positively vexed he sounded in the House of Keys about this, and I thought he made some good points. You know, I think it was a bit of a reality check, to be honest, and I've not followed the story very carefully, but just listening to that clip earlier on, I thought he made some cracking points. Don't know about you. Let's go to the lines and see what Eddie makes of this. Hi, Eddie.
Well, what I want to know is, where did the other 15 members who passed this vote the first time, when 17 people in the House of Keys voted for the first reading?
Yeah, it's strange.
And all of a sudden, 15 of them have gone missing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a joke, really and truly, if you look at it. I mean, we've had 6 or 7 professional people put their names forward.
For LegCo.
And we finished up, for LegCo.
Yeah.
I mean, we had lawyers, we had a Deemster, ex-Deemster.
Absolutely.
And what happens? We vote 4 of our own cronies.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's gone on and on and on for years. Mr. Bell can scream and shout as much as he wants, but at the end of the day, he's been there for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
And he's never done a thing about it.
Okay.
You know, and really and truly, I thought this time, with 17 of them voting, I thought, we've got a chance here. And within, 3, 4, 5 weeks, they've all gone and run into the woods again.
All right, Eddie, some good points. Thanks for calling. If this is all people have to moan about, then life must be really good on this gorgeous day, says Dave. Perspective is quite important, I suppose, isn't it? It's an issue that a lot of people feel quite upset about, so I think it's certainly worth discussing. But, Stu, I appreciate that politicians do a hard job and at least they put themselves forward. But, and it's a big but, when you listen to them on the radio, the whole system comes across as feudal, sexist, and at its worst, people just tinkering and no joined-up thinking. You have Treasury targeting pensioners and other people on low incomes, and DHSC trying to pick up the pieces. But the farce of continuing to vote for LegCo until you get the person you want is a bit like saying the pilot doesn't think the plane's safe, but don't worry, we've got another one. There must be a better way, says Jan. Yeah.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Now, are we really alone in the universe? Apparently we might not be.
Forget little green men. If aliens do exist, they'll apparently look like us. Oh, good. I'd hate aliens to look like giant lobsters. A biologist made the claim, insisting we are not alone in the universe. Expert in evolution, Professor Simon Conway Morris, is a fellow at St John's College, Cambridge.
What evolution on this planet seems to tell us is that actually there are rather few solutions to things like moving around in the sea or flying or walking across the land, all those sorts of things. I mean, for example, the way that you and I walk and actually an insect walks, it looks rather different, but it basically is the same. There are very few options to life.
Is it logical to think that evolution is taking place on other planets, or are you convinced that we are alone in the universe? I agree that we can't be alone in the universe. The fact that we haven't been contacted yet proves to me that Einstein was right, i.e. it's impossible to travel faster than the speed of light. To take hundreds or even thousands of years to get to the nearest habitable planet. Sad, really. It means that Star Trek warp drives are not going to happen, says Martin. Right then. Or it's just that we've not found the right dilithium crystals yet, maybe. Maybe they've had a look at us and decided not to bother, says Jan. Yeah. Yeah, well, if you sort of bring that closer to home and think, where can I go on holiday? I know. I'll go to Stoke-on-Trent. You'd just never go, would you? Hey boy, an alien visiting Earth would laugh at us, a planet full of people killing each other. Why would they visit? There's got to be other intelligent beings out there, says G. Hi Stu, I haven't encountered much intelligent life here on Earth. Have you, says David H. Yes, I have. Lots of lovely people. Stu, I was of the opinion as to whether or not we're alone was all the experts had to justify their titles, and how were we, the ordinary people, in a position to question their knowledge. However, I watched a programme on one of the Discovery channels earlier this week about the Hubble telescope. Wow. From its first launch, every team that's gone up to that telescope has fitted it with newer, more powerful lenses and cameras. This has enabled images to be taken way past the stars that we can see from down here. The images and sheer vastness of space are unbelievable, so I guess you would have to say that we can't be the only life form. You need to watch that programme to appreciate the enormity of space, says Pete. No, I don't need to watch a programme to know that space is very, very big. This is the voice of the Mistrons, that you can hear as Earthling. Yeah, that used to terrify me when I was a kid. I used to be able to do that voice. I think you speak while you're breathing in. This is the voice. Yeah, that's the kind of thing.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Well, that's it for the latest look back at some of the highlights from Talking Heads. Thank you to everyone who took the time to take part in the programme. If you'd like to do the same, there's a chance to get involved in the discussion each weekday between midday and 2 p.m. You can give us a call or text or email your contribution to us. And if you missed the programme and want to hear it in full, you can do that using the on-demand section of manxradio.com. You'll find an update of the topics up for discussion each day on the website too. And that information is also available by following Stu Manx on Twitter or liking the Facebook page, Talking Heads with Stu Peters. If you can't take part in the programme while it's on air, but want to have your say on any of the items up for discussion, the Facebook page is the best place to do it, but do keep what you say within reason. And if you'd like to suggest a topic which we could discuss on the programme, you can get it to us by emailing talk@manxradio.com, and you can do that anytime. But that's it for now, so until next time, goodbye.
Talking Heads, brought to you by Magic Carpets, with the only Carndine design showroom on the island.